"You're not my dad anymore." The words detonated in the living room like the crack of a gun. They hung in the air, echoing off old family photographs and worn furniture, rattling the dust of years gone silent. The house, once alive with Sunday laughter and gospel music from Jeremiah's old record player, now felt smaller, like its walls were ashamed to witness what was happening inside them. Jeremiah Cole, 70 years old, stood still beside the fireplace. The orange glow carved his face in half, one side warmth, the other shadow. His short grey beard glimmered faintly, trimmed neat, framing a mouth that had forgotten the habit of smiling. His eyes a dark, patient brown, fixed on nothing in particular. He looked not at the man shouting before him, but through him into something far older than anger. Marcus Cole, 31, stood at the center of the room, breathing fast, his chest heaving beneath a fitted black t-shirt. His youthful arrogance looked sharper in the firelight, his jaw tense, his lips quivering with pride disguised as rage. He pointed toward his father with a trembling hand, veins showing in his arm. "You hear me? You stopped being my father a long time ago. You think that silence makes you wise. Nah, it just means you gave up." Jeremiah didn't answer. He blinked slowly, the way a man does when choosing which memories to let hurt him. The house creaked. Somewhere outside, a stray branch scratched the window pane. Inside, the only motion came from the flames licking higher behind the metal grate, their glow reflecting across the glass of framed pictures that lined the mantel. Marcus's voice cracked again. "You just stand there watching me work myself to death, acting like I owe you something. You're just waiting for me to take care of you, like you took care of nothing." Jeremiah exhaled through his nose, slow and deep. He leaned slightly on his cane, its polished handle catching the firelight. "Marcus," he said quietly. The voice was low, steady, like a bass note under a storm. "You done?" The question only stoked the fire. Marcus barked a bitter laugh. "Done? You think this is just talk? You ruined everything Mom left behind. You think you get to stand there and judge me? I've got no right." He turned toward the mantel. His eyes landed on the large wooden frame, the family portrait from years back. Jeremiah in a dark suit, his wife Clarissa in a Sunday hat, Marcus between them wearing his high school gown, the tassel crooked, his smile real back then. Marcus stared for a long moment. Something twisted inside him, grief pretending to be fury. He ripped the frame from the wall. The nail shrieked as it tore free. Dust rained down. Jeremiah's head tilted slightly, but he said nothing. Marcus held the picture in both hands, his breathing ragged. For a flicker of a second, hesitation crossed his eyes. Then pride returned. "You want silence, old man? Let's see how quiet your memories can get." He threw the frame straight into the open fire. The crash of breaking glass shattered the stillness. Paper curled in heat, the image folding, faces twisting as the edges caught flame. Clarissa's smile turned black first, Marcus's younger grin following, Jeremiah's photograph face dissolving last. Jeremiah's reflection in the glass door of the fireplace did not move. Only his grip on the cane tightened once, then eased. Marcus turned back, breathing hard. "You gonna say something? Come on, say something for once in your life." Jeremiah's voice came soft, measured, cutting clean through the noise. "There's nothing left to say tonight." Marcus shook his head violently. "Of course there ain't, you never got words. That's why Mom—" He stopped himself. The sentence hung like a blade between them. Jeremiah finally lifted his eyes. For the first time they met. Age against youth, silence against fire. "Watch what you do with your anger, boy," Jeremiah murmured. "It tends to come back owing interest." Marcus scoffed, the sound bitter. "You threatening me?" "No," Jeremiah said simply. "Just reminding you." He turned away and walked toward the old armchair by the window. The rhythm of his cane against the hardwood floor. Tap, tap. Tap echoed through the house like a metronome of patience. He sat down slowly, the chair creaking beneath him. The fire hissed behind him, brighter now, its heat pressing against his back. He looked down at his hands, old, veined, steady, and then at the phone resting on the side table. He flipped it open, pressed a single speed dial number, and lifted it to his ear. A calm female voice answered. "Mr. Cole?" "It's time," he said. No tremor in his tone, just quiet certainty. "Understood," the voice replied. "Everything will be handled by morning. He ended the call, closed the phone, and placed it on the table like a man setting down a burden. Marcus frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Jeremiah didn't reply. He simply stared out the window. Outside, wind pushed the branches of the old oak tree, scattering leaves across the porch. The storm hadn't started yet, but the air knew it was coming. Marcus paced, muttering under his breath, "Man, you and your stupid games. You think calling your lawyer's gonna scare me? You think you can control me from your chair?" Jeremiah's reflection in the glass barely moved. The only sign of life was the faint rise and fall of his chest. Marcus pointed toward him again, veins visible in his forearm. "You listen, old man. You're done. You can sit there and act all righteous, but you got nothing left. You hear me? Nothing." The fire flared suddenly, loud and bright, throwing orange streaks across Marcus's face. For a moment, his own reflection in the window looked like a stranger, eyes hollow, edges trembling. Jeremiah spoke again, softer than before. "Then you shouldn't be worried about what I've done." Marcus froze. "What?" But the old man didn't answer. He leaned back, eyes closing, the weight of decades resting on his shoulders. His silence returned, not empty but full of meaning Marcus couldn't yet name. The clock on the wall ticked slow. The air grew thick. Marcus finally turned away, running both hands through his hair. "I can't do this anymore." He stormed down the hallway, grabbed his jacket, and slammed the front door so hard the glass panels shuddered. Jeremiah opened his eyes. For a long while he just sat there, listening to the fire, to the ticking clock, to the echo of his son's footsteps fading into the night. He whispered, almost to himself, "Lord, let him learn without breaking." Then he reached forward, picked up the iron poker, and pushed what was left of the photo deeper into the flames. The image crumbled into fine black ash. Behind the fire's roar came another sound, distant and deliberate, the faint chime of a message arriving on his phone. Jeremiah looked down. A simple text on the screen read, "Transfer initiated. Confirmation by morning." He closed the phone again and rested it in his palm, eyes reflecting the firelight. Outside, thunder rolled far away. Inside, the old man sat perfectly still, an unmoving figure framed by fire and silence, waiting for the dawn that would make his son understand what silence can do. And by the next morning, Marcus Cole's name would mean nothing at all. The morning began too quiet. No birdsong, no hum of the refrigerator, not even the faint rustle of wind that usually slipped through the blinds. The house, once roaring with last night's anger, now held its breath. Marcus Cole woke on the couch, one arm thrown over his face. His throat was dry, his head pounding from a restless sleep. The memories came slow at first. The shouting, the fire, the old man's silence. Then they hit harder, sharp as glass. He groaned, sitting up. Ashes from the burned frame still clung to the fireplace grate, black dust spilling onto the rug. A faint smell of charred paper lingered in the air. He looked around for his father, half expecting him to be sitting in that same old chair, quiet, unreadable, judging without words. But the chair was empty. Marcus blinked. "Old man?" he called, voice cracking slightly. No answer. He stood, brushed off his shirt, and walked toward the hallway. The bedroom door was half open, bed neatly made. No sign of Jeremiah's cane, his hat, or the old duffel bag that always sat by the closet. The man was gone. Marcus frowned. Good. He didn't need the weight of that silence lingering over him. Not after what he said. Not after everything he'd carried since his mother died. He muttered to himself, "Let him go sulk somewhere." He walked into the kitchen, poured himself some coffee from yesterday's pot, cold and bitter, then pulled out his phone to check his balance, a habit he'd picked up ever since his father had started questioning where his money went. He opened the banking app. The screen froze for a second. Then his brow furrowed. Balance 0.00, he blinked. Refreshed the screen. Waited. Nothing changed. He checked the savings account. Empty. Business account. Closed. The credit line. Frozen. Marcus's stomach dropped. "Now this gotta be some kind of glitch." He refreshed again, harder this time. Still zero. He switched apps, tried another login. Denied. The message blinked at him like mockery. Access temporarily restricted. Contact your financial advisor. His heart began to race. He dropped the mug. It shattered against the floor, spilling coffee across his shoes. No. What the hell is this? He grabbed his phone, dialed his bank's customer line. A calm automated voice came through the receiver. "We're experiencing higher than normal call volume. Please hold." He slammed the phone down, running both hands over his face, the same hands that had thrown his family photo into the fire just hours ago. Out on the porch, the morning sun was bright, almost cruel in its warmth. The air smelled like cut grass and fresh earth, the kind of day meant for peace but not for Marcus. He sat on the steps, phone pressed to his ear, listening to endless hold music. When the line finally clicked, a polite voice said, "Good morning. Mr. Cole, I'm showing several account changes processed overnight. Can you confirm you authorized a full asset reversion?" Marcus froze. "What the hell's a reversion?" The voice stayed calm. "According to your documents, the ownership of all accounts and associated funds has reverted to the original trustee, a Mr. Jeremiah A. Cole." The world went quiet. Marcus's throat tightened. "That's impossible. He can't, he's my father." "Yes, sir," the rep said politely. "That's what the documents show." Marcus's mind went blank. He hung up, breathing fast, staring at nothing. His pulse thudded in his ears. He remembered the call from last night, the way the old man had said, "It's time." He jumped up, grabbed his jacket, and ran out the door. The drive across town was a blur, red lights ignored, horns blaring behind him. The city moved slow around him, everyone else stuck in their peaceful routines. Marcus's world was cracking open, while the rest of the world just continued. He pulled up outside an old brick building downtown, the kind with flaking paint and fading letters on the sign. Brooks and Associates, Family Law. He stormed through the glass door. "I need to speak to Daniel Brooks." The secretary, a calm woman in her 50s, looked up from her screen. "Do you have an appointment, sir?" Marcus slammed both hands on the counter. "My father does. Jeremiah Cole. Tell him to undo whatever he just did." Her eyes softened slightly, though her tone stayed even. "Mr. Brooks is with a client. Please have a seat." Marcus started pacing, the air thick with tension. 10 minutes felt like an hour before the door to the back office opened. Daniel Brooks stepped out, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a calmness similar to Jeremiah's, but more professional, more deliberate. "Marcus," he said, adjusting his glasses, "I figured I'd see you today. Where's my money, man?" Marcus demanded. "You think this is funny? You think you can just rob me?" Brooks sighed softly. "No one's robbing you. Your father reclaimed what was his. What are you talking about?" The lawyer motioned toward a chair. Marcus refused to sit. "When your mother passed," Daniel said carefully, "your father kept every asset, every account, and every property under his name until a full transition could happen. He wanted to make sure you were ready." Marcus frowned. "Ready for what?" "Responsibility," Brooks said. "You were added as a secondary signer, but not as owner. Last night, your father made one call to finalize the reversion clause. Everything reverted to his authority. The paperwork was signed years ago." Marcus's breath caught. "He planned this?" Daniel's expression didn't change. "He prepared for it. I advised him to." Marcus took a step back, shaking his head. "That old man. He just ruined my life." Brooks's tone turned cold. "You did that when you threw away the picture, Marcus." The words landed like a punch. For a long moment, Marcus just stood there, his eyes glassy, his lips parted, but silent. He turned away and left without another word. Back at the house, the sunlight had shifted, brighter now, unforgiving. He walked through the front door, the silence deafening. The fireplace was cold, the ashtray full of black flakes. He dropped to his knees, staring at what was left of the photo. All that remained was the edge of his mother's hand unburned, her wedding ring still visible in the corner. He picked it up carefully, thumb trembling. In that moment, the anger began to melt, replaced by something far worse. Clarity. He remembered his father's words. "Watch what you do with your anger, boy. It tends to come back owing interest." Marcus's eyes burned. He clenched the small piece of the photo, whispering under his breath, "What did you do, old man?" Outside, a car door shut. Slow, steady footsteps approached the porch. Marcus turned toward the sound, and there stood Jeremiah Cole, silent, his coat draped neatly over his arm, cane in hand. His short grey beard caught the light of morning. His eyes didn't hold judgment, only truth. For the first time, Marcus didn't speak. He just stared. Jeremiah broke the silence. "You wanted freedom, son. Now you've got it." He turned and began walking away. Marcus's voice cracked. "Where are you going?" Jeremiah didn't answer. He only lifted his hand slightly in farewell, the same calm composure as always. The sound of the cane faded down the steps. The morning light caught his silhouette one last time, before it disappeared into the street. And Marcus stood there in his quiet house, surrounded by ashes, empty accounts, and the echo of the man he never truly understood. That night, the silence felt heavier than walls. The house, once his symbol of pride, had turned into something hollow, an echo of his own choices. Marcus Cole sat at the kitchen table, the lights dim, phone screen glowing pale blue. He stared at it, scrolling through app after app, all showing 0. Every account, every credit line, every card gone. His breath came shallow. His thoughts swirled between disbelief and the slow dawning understanding that this wasn't a glitch. It wasn't random. His father had done it deliberately, with precision, patience, and something Marcus never learned: control. He leaned back, rubbed his face with both hands, and whispered, "You really did it, old man. You really took it all." The hum of the refrigerator filled the room. A clock ticked. Somewhere a faucet dripped. The stillness pressed against him, forcing him to sit with himself, something he hadn't done in years. The phone buzzed. Tina, his girlfriend, calling. He hesitated, then answered. "Hey, baby," she said, voice tired but warm. "You good? You didn't come by?" Marcus forced a laugh. "Yeah, just dealing with something stupid." "You sound off," she said. "You sure everything's okay?" He hesitated. Should he tell her? No, not yet. His pride still stood taller than the truth. Yeah. Just some bank thing. It'll clear up," she hummed softly, unconvinced. "All right. You want me to come by?" "Nah, I'm good." He hung up before she could say more. Then he sat in the dark, the quiet stretching like miles. By morning, his stomach ached from hunger, not from lack of food, but from the churn of anxiety. He tried calling the bank again. Same answer. Funds legally reverted. Trustee authorization confirmed. He called Daniel Brooks's office. The secretary's tone was polite but final. "Mr. Cole has instructed that all communications go through him directly. He said you'd know how." Marcus's jaw clenched. He didn't know how. He didn't know anything anymore. He left the house, slamming the door behind him. Outside, the city looked different, sharper, colder. The air carried a damp chill that clung to his skin. He walked aimlessly, hands in pockets, until he found himself in front of an old diner they used to go to as a family. He stood there for a long moment, watching through the window. A father and his young son sat inside, laughing over pancakes. The sight hit Marcus harder than he expected. He felt something twist inside, something old and unfinished. He turned away, jaw tightening. When he got back home, his phone was ringing again. This time it was Detective Harris, a family acquaintance who'd helped his father with estate paperwork after his mother passed. "Marcus," the man said, his tone careful, "your father asked me to make sure you're aware of the transfer. Everything's clean, legal, and final." He also left a message. Marcus's heart kicked. "What message?" He said, and I'm quoting here, "Sometimes you need to lose what you think you own to remember what you were given." Marcus laughed bitterly. That sounds like him. He also said he's moving out of town. Didn't say where. The line went quiet for a moment. "You okay, son?" the detective asked softly. Marcus's throat closed up. "Yeah," he lied. When the call ended, he just sat there, the words echoing in his mind. "Lose what you think you own." He looked around the house again. Every object, and the couch, the TV, the framed degree, felt meaningless now. The place didn't feel like his anymore. Later that evening, hunger finally forced him into the kitchen. He opened the fridge. Empty. The grocery delivery service declined his card. He tried ordering online. Payment failed. He cursed under his breath, pacing the room like a trapped animal. Then his eyes landed on the corner shelf. There sat one last photograph, not burned, not thrown away. It showed his father, his mother, and himself as a child. Standing by the old Buick, he picked it up carefully. His thumb tracing his mother's smile, he remembered her voice. Your father may be quiet, baby, but he don't forget nothing. Not the good, not the bad. The words lingered like smoke. By midnight, desperation began to creep in. He logged onto his father's old email, hoping maybe there was a clue, a transfer notice, something. But the account was locked behind two-step verification. He sat back, rubbing his temples, muttering, "You planned this whole damn thing, didn't you, old man?" His phone buzzed again. A text this time. No name, just a number he didn't recognize. "I left something for you in the drawer." "JC," Marcus froze. He got up, crossed the room and opened the small desk drawer by the window. Inside was a plain envelope. His name was written in his father's handwriting, steady, deliberate. He tore it open. Inside was a single folded note and an old brass key. The note read, "Not every inheritance is money. Some of it's memory. Go where your mother first made you promise to be a man." Marcus stared at the words, confusion flooding his face. His eyes darted to the key. It was heavy, slightly rusted. Looked like something for a storage unit or an old lock. He sat back in his chair, staring at the envelope, then at the window. Rain had started to fall, soft and slow. For the first time in years, he felt small, like a boy again, standing in front of his father's silence, trying to understand its meaning. He whispered, almost to himself, "The church." That's where his mother had said it, at the small brick church where they used to go every Sunday before things fell apart. He stood, grabbed his jacket, and slipped the key into his pocket. As he stepped outside, thunder rumbled low in the distance. The rain came down harder, glistening on the pavement. His reflection shimmered beneath the streetlight, tired, worn, and alone. For the first time, Marcus didn't curse the storm. He welcomed it. He walked into the rain, head bowed, the old brass key clutched tight in his hand. Somewhere in the quiet hum of night, justice was still unfolding, slowly, silently, like the man who had set it all in motion. The rain followed him all the way across town. Each step splashed against memory, the kind that doesn't fade, just hides in corners until silence calls it out again. Marcus Cole walked under the dim halo of streetlights, soaked to the bone, his jacket clinging to him. The brass key in his pocket felt heavier than it should have been, like it carried more than metal, like it held guilt or history or both. The church sat at the end of Ashbury Street, small, brick, humble, the same one his father used to take them to when life still made sense. Its wooden sign leaned slightly to one side, the white paint fading. New Grace Baptist Church, where faith remembers. He hadn't been there in almost 10 years, not since his mother's funeral. He pushed the gate open. The sound of metal squeaked through the rain, echoing against the gravestones behind the chapel. He hesitated. His hand trembled slightly, and for a moment he almost turned back. Then he whispered, "Not tonight." He climbed the steps and tried the door. Locked. He fished the brass key from his pocket. The teeth fit perfectly into the old keyhole. When it turned, the click was soft, but it sounded like something much larger opening. Inside, the church smelled of rain-soaked wood and dust. Rows of pews stretched into darkness, the stained glass windows glowing faintly with the streetlight outside. The only sound was the soft patter of rain hitting the roof. Marcus moved slowly down the aisle, the echoes of his footsteps trailing him. He remembered every Sunday morning, his father's deep voice humming hymns, his mother's soft hands on his shoulders, the warmth of belonging. He reached the front pew and stopped. Something rested there, a small wooden box. It wasn't there by accident. He picked it up, sat down, and opened the lid. Inside were a few old photographs, a folded document, and a sealed envelope marked, "For Marcus, when silence is all that's left." His throat tightened. He opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a letter written in his father's steady handwriting, that same deliberate penmanship Marcus used to make fun of when he was younger. "Marcus, if you're reading this, you've run out of noise. That means you're finally able to hear. You think I took your money, I didn't. You gave it away the day you forgot who built it with you. I just reminded the bank whose name still held the house you stand in. This isn't punishment, it's balance. Every dollar you lost came from what you didn't value. Respect, patience, family. The law let me move what was mine, but I left you what's yours, the choice to start again. Your mother made me promise to never let you forget what kind of man you were raised to be. I'm keeping that promise even if it hurts us both. Go to her grave. She's waiting for you to listen." Dad Marcus folded the letter slowly, his eyes stinging, though no tears fell. He stared at the pews, empty and ghostly. The silence pressed close, not as a punishment, but as a mirror. He looked again into the box. Beneath the photos lay a single checkbook. The cover bore his father's initials, J.C., embossed in gold. He opened it. Inside, one check was torn halfway through, unsigned, the note section reading, "For new beginnings." He exhaled long and shaky. His hands trembled slightly as he closed the box again. Lightning flashed outside, briefly illuminating the church interior, the cross, the faded hymnals, the wooden floor. He whispered into the emptiness, "You planned this far ahead, didn't you?" The sound of his voice startled him. He hadn't spoken aloud in what felt like hours. He stood, walked to the altar and placed the letter there. His reflection in the polished wood looked older than he remembered. The arrogance stripped away, leaving something quieter, more real. Outside, the rain had softened into a mist. He stepped out, the air cool and clean. Across the graveyard, he could see the faint outline of his mother's headstone under the streetlight. He walked toward it slowly, the grass soft under his shoes, the rain brushing against his face like forgiveness he hadn't earned. The headstone was simple. Clarissa Cole, beloved wife and mother, 1958-2019. He knelt beside it, brushing the wet leaves away. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, quietly, "I'm sorry." His voice cracked. "I thought he was just trying to control me, but he was protecting me. From myself." The wind whispered through the trees, and a soft roll of thunder murmured in the distance. He took the brass key from his pocket again, staring at it under the dim light. Then he set it down at the base of the gravestone. "He said you'd make me listen," he whispered. "Guess you still can." He stood, hands in his pockets, eyes on the grave. His mind felt clearer than it had in months. The anger was gone, replaced by a dull ache that felt almost like peace. When he turned to leave, he noticed a figure standing at the edge of the street, umbrella open, motionless. A tall silhouette, familiar. His heart skipped. Even through the rain and distance, he knew that stillness, the way the figure's shoulders barely moved, the quiet strength in the way he stood. It was Jeremiah. Marcus froze. Their eyes met through the blur of rain and shadow. Neither spoke. The old man's short grey beard glistened faintly in the streetlight. His umbrella tilted slightly, as if in silent acknowledgement. Then, slowly, Jeremiah turned and walked away, his cane tapping softly against the wet pavement. Marcus wanted to call out, to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he just stood there watching the man who had just taken everything, and somehow given him back something greater. When the rain stopped, Marcus was still there, staring at the spot where his father had stood, listening to the silence he had once hated, now understanding it was the only thing that had ever truly spoken to him. The morning after the rain, the world felt washed, not clean but raw. The streets shimmered with puddles, reflecting the pale grey sky. Birds perched on telephone wires, shaking the damp from their wings. Marcus Cole sat on a park bench across from the church, elbows on his knees, the wooden box resting beside him. He hadn't gone home. He couldn't. The house that had once felt like proof of success now stood for everything hollow he had built on pride. He rubbed his hands together, watching the condensation of his breath in the cool air. The letter from his father replayed in his mind. Lose what you think you own to remember what you were given. For years he thought strength meant talking louder, working harder, owning more. He'd built an empire of noise, fast cars, faster tempers, endless debt. He called it independence, but really it was defiance wearing a suit. Now all of it was gone. And for the first time he could hear again. The sound of footsteps broke his thoughts. "Excuse me," came a soft voice. He looked up. It was Mrs. Riley, the church caretaker, a woman in her 60s who had known him since he was a boy. Her hair was streaked silver now, her face weathered with kindness. She held a paper cup of coffee out to him. "You looked like you could use this." Marcus managed a small, tired smile. You always did know when somebody needed saving. She chuckled. Oh, I don't save folks, baby. I just hand 'em coffee till they find the strength to save themselves. He accepted the cup, the warmth sinking into his cold hands. She glanced at the wooden box beside him. Your daddy told me you'd come by sooner or later. Marcus blinked. He talked to you? Mrs. Riley nodded, her eyes soft. Few weeks back. Said he was getting things in order. Said you'd need someone who remembered the good in you when you forgot it yourself. Marcus lowered his gaze. He planned everything. Jeremiah don't move without a reason, she said. That man's been 2 steps ahead of his own pain since the day he buried your mama. He swallowed hard. I thought he stopped caring. Mrs. Riley smiled faintly. Child silence don't mean absence. Sometimes it's just love taking a deep breath before it speaks. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small envelope. He left this with me too. Said to give it to you once you were done being angry. Marcus hesitated, then took it. His father's handwriting again. The same precise curves and lines. He unfolded the note inside. Marcus, if you're ready, go to the old shop on 3rd Avenue. The one I built when you were still learning how to hold a hammer. You'll find what's left of me there. Use it right. Dad Marcus looked up. The wood shop? Mrs. Riley nodded. Ain't been open since before your mama passed. But he never sold it. Always said some things gotta wait for the right time. He stood, determination stirring for the first time in years. Thank you, Mrs. Riley, she smiled, sipping her coffee. Don't thank me, baby. Just don't waste the lesson he paid for. The old shop sat on a quiet street, tucked between a pawn store and an auto garage. Its faded sign still read, Cole & Son Carpentry, built to last. Marcus stared at the words. He remembered the day his father painted that sign. He was only 12, restless, impatient, already dreaming of a life bigger than wood and sweat. He pushed the door open. Dust danced in the sunlight, cutting through the cracked windows. The scent of oak and varnish filled the air, the smell of his childhood. Tools still hung on the walls. An old radio sat on the counter. He turned it on out of habit, static at first. Then faint gospel humming through. He walked around slowly, running his fingers over the workbench grooves, the burn marks, the tiny initials he'd carved once when his father wasn't looking. Then he saw it, a thick folder sitting on the bench, labeled simply Cole Estate. He opened it. Inside were property papers, business documents, and a letter stapled to the top. Marcus, you once told me you wanted to build something of your own. So here it is. The shop's yours. It's debt-free, licensed, and ready. The bank didn't take your future. I just redirected it. The money you lost wasn't stolen. It was stored under your name for this place. I wanted you to see how little cash means without foundation. You can rebuild now, not from pride, but from purpose. If you ever choose to run this shop again, remember the name on the door. It still says Cole & Son for a reason. Dad Marcus stood still, eyes tracing every word. He read it 3 times before setting it down. His hands trembled slightly, not from anger this time, but from something deeper. Gratitude disguised as heartbreak. He ran a hand through his hair and looked around again. The sawdust, the light, the tools, everything was still here, waiting. He whispered under his breath, "You didn't ruin me, did you? You were rebuilding me the whole time." The sound of rain outside returned, gentle this time. It tapped softly on the roof like a rhythm to his thoughts. He picked up a chisel, turned it in his hand. The weight felt right, familiar, honest. For hours he stayed there, cleaning, fixing, restoring. The act itself felt like an apology. One nail, one brushstroke, one breath at a time. As the sun began to set, the old shop started to look alive again. Lights warm, air filled with the scent of cut wood and oil. Marcus stood by the window, looking out at the darkening street. The letter lay open on the workbench behind him. He whispered, "I'll make it right, Pop, I swear I will." Then he turned off the light, locked the door, and stepped into the evening. The sky had cleared, painted in deep amber and violet. He didn't notice the old black sedan parked across the street, or the man sitting inside. Jeremiah Cole, silent as ever, watched his son leave the shop. His lips curved slightly, not a smile of victory but of peace. He murmured quietly, "Now you understand." He placed his phone on the seat beside him, screen lit with a paused voice memo labeled, "For Marcus, if I don't make it." Then he started the engine and drove away, headlights vanishing into the soft dusk. The morning sun spilled through the blinds of the workshop, catching dust in the air like floating gold. For the first time in years, the building didn't feel abandoned. It breathed again. Marcus Cole stood in the doorway, a mug of coffee in his hand, watching light crawl across the wooden floorboards. The place smelled of fresh polish and sawdust. He had spent the last 2 weeks rebuilding it piece by piece, fixing the shelves, replacing the wiring, sanding every inch of the bench his father once worked at. Each scrape of the sandpaper felt like penance, each hammer strike a confession. He no longer cursed the silence. He worked with it. The town had started to notice, too. Old customers of Jeremiah's carpentry stopped by, a few out of curiosity, some out of nostalgia. They called him Mr. Cole's boy. At first that name hurt. Now it felt like a crown he hadn't earned, but was learning to carry. That afternoon, while rearranging the drawers beneath the counter, Marcus found an old cassette tape, unlabeled, dusty, but clearly kept safe. He turned it over in his hands, staring at the faded plastic. No note this time, no instruction. Just the weight of a man's foresight. He wiped it clean, found the tape player on the shelf, and slid it in. A faint hiss filled the air, then a voice, deep, calm, steady. If you're hearing this, I figure I've said all I needed to say face to face. But maybe silence still has one thing left to teach. Marcus froze. It was his father. You've got my stubbornness, boy. You always did. Thought the world had to see you to believe you. I tried to tell you. A man don't need the world's eyes if he's got his own steady. When I stopped talking, it wasn't because I stopped caring. I was just giving you space to hear yourself. That's all silence ever is, was a mirror turned inward. The voice cracked slightly softer now. Your mama used to say, he'll find his way when he's tired of the noise. Looks like she was right again. Marcus swallowed hard, blinking fast. There's a folder in the bottom drawer. Inside it, you'll find the shop's deed signed over fully to you. No strings, no debts. Just a place to start again. If I'm gone by the time you hear this, don't mourn me. Just build something worth our name. A pause, a breath. And one more thing, son. Forgiveness ain't words. It's work. So if you ever want to talk, come home. Not to apologize, but to help me sand a piece of wood. We can do that in silence, just fine. Then the tape clicked off. Marcus sat there for a long time, the player still humming faintly. His eyes stayed on the floor, his chest rising and falling in uneven rhythm. When he finally moved, it was slow, reverent. He walked to the workbench, opened the bottom drawer and found the folder exactly where Jeremiah said it would be. Inside, the deed was real, his name written neatly, alongside his father's fading signature. Beneath it was a photograph, one Marcus had never seen before. It was of the two of them years ago, working side by side in this same shop. Jeremiah's short grey beard dusted with sawdust, Marcus smiling wide, both caught mid-laughter. His father's arm was around his shoulder. Marcus traced the image with his thumb, whispering, "You never left, did you?" The next morning, Marcus drove to his father's house. It was quiet. The lawn overgrown, the porch empty. He knocked, no answer. He tried the handle, unlocked. Inside, everything was tidy, deliberate. The table had 2 coffee mugs set out, as if Jeremiah had expected him. On the kitchen counter lay a single sealed envelope. Marcus's name again, written steady and sure. He opened it with shaking hands. "Gone to Alabama to stay with your Uncle Henry. Doctor says I need rest, but truth is, I just need distance to let you grow on your own. You know where to find me when you've built something worth showing. Until then, this house is yours. Fill it with better echoes than we did before." Dad Marcus read it twice, then sat down at the table. He looked at the empty chair across from him and smiled, a small, quiet smile. He poured himself a cup of coffee, took one sip and whispered, "You old man." You turned revenge into a lesson. The house felt different now, not haunted, blessed. Every wall seemed to breathe with peace. A week later, Marcus reopened the shop under a new nameplate, Cole Restoration, built with silence. Business came slow but honest. Every piece he built, every plank he polished, carried his father's rhythm, that steady patience that once irritated him but now guided his hands. Some nights, he stayed late, the radio playing soft blues, his mind replaying his father's voice. And every so often, when the wind outside hit just right, he'd hear the faint echo of a cane tapping against the pavement, steady, sure, as if Jeremiah was still there, making sure the foundation held. Months passed. Seasons shifted. One afternoon, Marcus received a letter, postmarked from Alabama. Inside was a photograph, his father sitting on a porch swing, eyes half closed, short grey beard neat as ever. In his lap rested a carved wooden plaque. It read, "A son rebuilt." Beneath it, Jeremiah's handwriting. Silence speaks louder when the world's finally listening. Marcus stared at it for a long time, then smiled. The kind of smile that carried pride and peace at once. He placed the photograph on the shop wall, right above the workbench, next to the old family portrait he'd reprinted from a saved copy on his mother's drive. This time, it wasn't to remember what he'd lost, but to honor what had survived. That evening, the sun dipped low, casting amber light across the room. Marcus turned off the saw, wiped his hands clean, and stood by the door. He whispered softly, "I hear you now, Pop." Outside, the wind moved through the trees, quiet, patient, steady. And in that silence, the sound of justice wasn't anger or triumph or punishment. It was forgiveness. It was legacy. It was love spoken without words.